Have you ever woken up one morning, looked out through a foggy window, and quietly asked yourself, what am I really living for? It sounds like a simple question, yet sometimes it leaves us silent for a very long time. We have jobs, houses, reputations, and people around us, but deep inside, there's often an emptiness that nothing seems to fill. Today, I want to tell you the story of Mr. Thomas, a man who once had everything, then lost it all, and finally found a reason to smile again every time the morning light touched his face. Thomas had been the CEO of a large company in Chicago. For more than 30 years, he lived inside the endless rhythm of work, meetings, contracts, decisions, and an obsession with perfection in every detail. He woke up at 5 a.m. every day, facing the morning with a cup of strong black coffee and a thick pile of documents. His phone never stopped ringing, and the sound of Mr. Thomas echoed through brightly lit hallways. He once believed that was what life meant, that it was purpose, success, the dream everyone wanted to achieve. People admired him. They respected him. But few knew that late at night, when every light went out, Thomas would sit alone by the window, looking down at the city glowing like an artificial galaxy, and inside he felt an unexplainable emptiness. Then one day, at the age of 58, a full stop arrived. He retired. No more meetings, no one waiting for his approval, no more relentless phone calls. The big, echoing house was now filled only with the ticking of a clock. Mornings were no longer urgent, just directionless. He still woke up early, brewed coffee, and looked out the window. People hurried off to work, full of purpose. But he, the man who once stood at the top, no longer knew where to go or what to do. Day after day passed, all the same, like an old film replayed endlessly. No climax, no ending. One day, while sorting through old files, he stumbled upon a photo taken on the day he became CEO. That face, radiant, confident, full of fire. But when he looked into the mirror now, he saw a man with gray hair, weary eyes, and a quiet, aching question whispered inside. Why do I even wake up anymore? On a chilly October morning, Thomas decided to take a walk through the nearby park. Golden leaves covered the path, and the cool breeze carried the earthy scent of damp soil. He wandered aimlessly until he stopped before an old iron gate. Behind it stood a small white-painted house, the neighborhood's orphanage. From inside came laughter, pure, innocent, a sound he hadn't heard, or perhaps hadn't felt, in so long. He stood still. Something stirred inside him, as if an invisible string had just plucked the softest corner of his soul. Just then, a boy, about 10 years old, ran out holding a worn notebook. "Mister, do you know how to solve this math problem?" Thomas laughed, a rare sound after so many silent months. "Let me see." He sat down on the steps, took a pen, and gently guided the boy through the problem. When the boy finally understood and shouted, "Ah, I got it! Thank you, mister!" Thomas felt something warm bloom inside his chest. It was such a small moment, but in that instant, something within him woke up. Like a beam of sunlight sneaking through a crack in a long, closed room. The next day, Thomas returned to the orphanage. Then the day after that. And soon, he began coming every morning, teaching the children math, helping them write, telling them stories about life. The kids loved him because he was patient, because he listened, and most of all, because he never scolded them for being wrong. He didn't just teach lessons, he taught them how to believe in themselves. "You can make mistakes," he said, "but don't be afraid of them. Everyone makes mistakes before they learn to do things right." One afternoon, while the group was sitting under a tree, a boy asked, "Mister, what did you dream of being when you were a kid?" Thomas smiled, his eyes soft with memory. "I once dreamed of becoming a teacher, but life took me somewhere else." The boy grinned. "Well, now you're our teacher." Thomas laughed, and tears quietly welled up. Yes, perhaps he had found the dream he once left behind. That night, he began keeping a journal. On the first page, he wrote, "Today, I taught the kids multiplication. They laughed a lot, and I felt useful again." Page after page, his notebook began to fill. Every day, he had a reason to rise early again, to brew coffee, prepare lessons, and pick a good story to tell. Each morning, he left home not out of duty, but out of joy, real, living joy. One morning, a staff member from the orphanage handed him a small envelope. "The children made this for you," she said. Inside were messy, misspelled notes, but each one carried pure, heartfelt words. "Thank you, Mr. Thomas. You taught us not to be afraid. You're the best person we've ever met. I want to be as smart as you when I grow up. Thomas stood still, gripping the little papers, and tears fell, not from sadness, but from happiness. In that moment, he understood. The meaning of life isn't success, it's being needed by someone. That night, in his notebook, he wrote only one line: I have found a reason to wake up every morning. From then on, Thomas's life completely changed. He still rose at 5 a.m., but no longer to check emails or prepare reports. Instead, he prepared his little whiteboard, a box of chalk, and a few old notebooks. When the first sunlight poured through the window, he felt something he had forgotten for years: the feeling of truly being alive. He smiled more, he talked more, and the wrinkles around his eyes now seemed meant only for joy. One day, an old friend visited and saw Thomas busy in a room full of papers and books. Thomas, his friend laughed. At this age, you still teach every day. Aren't you tired? Thomas smiled, eyes gleaming. No, not anymore. I'm finally living. The real exhaustion is not knowing what you're living for. Many people believe life is measured by money or fame, but in truth, it's measured by whether we're living in tune with our hearts. Thomas once thought life's meaning was success, status, recognition. But when all that vanished, he discovered the truth, that real meaning lies in bringing goodness to others. When you make someone smile, when you help a child believe they can do it, when you leave a warm trace in another person's heart, that's when you're living a meaningful life. One spring morning, Thomas opened his window. Soft sunlight filled the small room, gently illuminating the wooden desk where the children's handmade cards still lay. He placed his hand on it and smiled. His voice was calm, warm as the breeze. Thank you for helping me find myself again. Outside, birds sang, leaves rustled in the early wind. Thomas took a deep breath, sipped his coffee, and in the golden light, his eyes shone with a quiet joy, the joy of someone who finally knows why he wakes up each morning. Perhaps not all of us were CEOs, but each of us has been lost before. Each of us has felt the dull emptiness of life at some point. Yet the meaning of life isn't far away. It lives in the small things: a smile, a thank you, a single moment that makes your heart stir again. All it takes is one pause, one breath, to listen to your heart and ask, today, what makes me want to wake up? And when you find that answer, you'll realize that this life, though fleeting, is still so very worth living.